Good afternoon. I'm Mark Allen with Gaper.io, and I'm here today with Jeffery Goddard, the CEO and executive producer at TVA Media. Good afternoon, Jeffery. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
That's great. So to start with, could you share a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
Happily, I've been at it for 35 years, running advertising and PR campaigns for hundreds of clients. I started my agency in July 1987. Where were you in 1987, Mark?
In 1987, I was actually working at a bank in Buffalo, New York.
Really? Well,
And that was the year I got married.
is that right? Well,
Yes.
that was a significant year for you as well then.
Yes.
But I used to be at Ogilvy and Mather, one of the
Hmm.
largest ad agencies in the world, but being the brash 27-year-old, thought I could do it better myself. So I created my own agency here in Los Angeles. And it's been a wild ride ever since.
Wow, that sounds great. So, and did you start in LA or did you start somewhere else?
Well, I started my agency here in LA because it's the production capital of the world. And I first started out as a production company specializing in video marketing back when VHS cassettes were just starting to be used as a marketing tool. And so we became known as the go-to agency for direct mail video brochures. In fact, I think I'm the one that coined the term. I don't know of anybody that's been using it, that term longer than I have. Video
Direct
brochures,
mail.
and we would produce, package, and distribute these nice videos in the mail to companies for cruises, cars, computers.
Cool. I do remember getting those, so I probably did get your product there. And did you
Yeah,
start in LA? Did you start in another city?
Well, I started in Honolulu, working for Ogilvy and Mather right out of the Honolulu office. But because I'm bilingual in Japanese, they quickly shipped me off to the Tokyo office, where I worked happily for 3 years there. And talk about being in the right place at the right time. The first account that I was assigned as a lowly junior account executive right out of college was to launch the Sony Walkman.
Wow.
Which, as you know, because you've been around for a while, became the iPod of the 80s and skyrocketed my career. So by the time I left the agency 3 years later, I was handling 5 different lines for Sony, as well as Yoplait, Canada Dry, Singapore Airlines, Lee Jeans.
Wow.
And it was a
Very
great
cool.
kickstart for my career, but I wanted to be my own boss and see if I could be as successful in my own backyard, hometown of Los Angeles, as I was in Tokyo. And so I left the agency to start up my own firm here in 87.
That is really cool. And I did have a Sony Walkman. I remember it well.
Yeah.
It might be like in the garage in some box somewhere. In fact, I haven't used it in a few years.
Hold on to it. It could be a collector's item at some
I know,
point, if not already.
It's kind of like those Barry Bonds rookie cards, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll pivot now to remote workers. What has been your experience with remote employment, both as a remote worker yourself and as a remote employer?
Funny you should ask, because after having a huge overhead with 50 employees on the backlot of Universal Studios for years, it was scary how much business we had to do every month just to break even, just to crack that net of ours that was looming over my head stressfully, because I had no partners. Never took out a bank loan. It was all bootstrapped right from working out of my house. When I first started the agency, I started in a little bedroom in Van Nuys, California.
Wow.
And, but again, being in the right place at the right time, video marketing took off. And within a year's time, I was a millionaire, at least on paper. And I had employees and a big overhead. And, but after going through that phase of, and it was good for the ego, because I'd walk into this gorgeous office with employees all, looking to me for leadership and advice, and it was stressful. At times I felt the company owned me more than me owning it. So after a while, I got smart. After years of dealing with the overhead and the stress, especially here in Los Angeles, which is not an employee-friendly environment. There's
Mm,
so many regulations and workers' comp issues and EDD regulations and vetting and the pain of firing people.
hmm
Hiring is one thing, but letting go of them when they're not performing is another. So I decided to get smart after years of that by following the movie studio model, where when you have a movie, you crew up, and
hmm
when you don't have when you don't have that gig, that movie, you let them go off and do other things. So I started more and more putting my people under contract. I turned
hmm
them into contract employees rather than full-time employees. And I thought we were going to take a hit financially because of that by um, not having everybody at my fingertips in-house with all the camaraderie and the buzz of face-to-face meetings and sharing creative ideas. Because as an ad agency, you want to have that buzz, that
hmm
excitement. And I thought that this was going to be impacted adversely, but it turned out that by becoming a virtual agency and relying, and now we're 100% virtual. Every production, I don't know if I should share these secrets, but every director, writer, producer, editor, animator, on-camera talent, casting directors, uh, media buyers, publicists are all through we rely now 100% on vetted, proven uh, teams that we help put together in many cases, or outsource. And we had our most profitable year after 33 years of running my own shop. Last year was our most profitable year. And even though I took everything back to the house, I've come full circle. I went from a little house in Van Nuys to an 8,500 square foot house here in Studio City, the
Ah,
production capital of the world. And according to Zillow, it's worth like $6.6 million last time I checked, with no mortgage. And so full circle from bedroom and now to I'm down. My commute is from upstairs to downstairs, and if I'm
hmm
feeling ambitious, I might cruise back to the guest house where we have editing bays and conference rooms
hmm
and things. So that was a long-winded answer to.
Yeah, it was quite interesting though. It's funny
Sorry.
because I've been working from home for years. And when people say, because in the Bay,
Yeah.
I live in the Bay Area, and traffic
Yes.
is an issue as it is in LA. And people say, "Oh, what's your commute? How long's your commute?" And I say, "Oh, about 20 feet."
Right.
And they are quite envious.
So this virus situation wasn't a big transition for me because I'm already working out of the house and relying heavily on Zoom, like we're doing right now. Most of our clients are out of state, if not out of country, and
Mhm,
again, I thought it would take a hit because, especially the bigger advertisers, they like to hire well-established firms that have the full employees and the swanky offices and
mhm,
conference rooms. But when we need the bells and whistles and brick and mortar of a studio, 5 minutes away is the
mhm,
studio we were housed in for 9 years. It's a 30,000 square foot facility with a giant green screen and editing. So when we need to do the face-to-face meetings
mhm.
or impress them with the bells and whistles, we've got that. But for most cases, when they see our body of work and check our references and case studies, it's good. I've signed $1 million deals with people I've never even met with just through Zoom.
Wow, that's great. So
Yeah.
you're good for this next one because since you have so much experience. What do you think is the future of remote employment, and specifically, what do you think needs to be done differently to make it better? Since you seem to have a lot of experience with it.
Yeah. Well, I've been since 2001. In fact, I bought this house 2 days, 1 or 2 days before 9/11 hit. And so for a while there, I was thinking, should I pull out of this deal? It's $1 million property, and I hadn't signed any papers yet, but I did give them my word. And I figured, well, if the economy crashes and we all go down, at least I can hold my head high that I kept my word. My word should be as good as my bond. Is that the expression?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I did stick with it, and thank goodness, because the property's appreciated 5 or 6 times since then. And so I think the future will continue to be more virtual and outsourcing. I'm so pleased to see that many of our teams that we outsource to that come from overseas, India, Pakistan, the Ukraine, people I've used for years. I thought there was going to be a huge culture gap and language problems. I'm so pleased to see how smooth it's been in most cases, but there are some pros and cons. Of course, when you have in-house people, there's more control, and you do get that camaraderie and the buzz of working with teams that you can see face to face. But the technologies with Zoom and other platforms like this are so good now and I think people, especially through this pandemic, will become increasingly used to doing business through video conferencing. So I think it's just going to take off. I see my daughter quickly making the adjustment with her teachers. She's only 11, and I thought she'd be stir crazy staying at home here like this, and not having the one-on-one with her friends at school, but she's adjusting very well. And her teachers, not only for school, but her ballet lessons, her piano lessons are all done like this now. And
wow,
it's not slowing her down in the slightest.
I actually did an online cardio class this morning. My gym is offering it, so it's.
I took a bass guitar lesson that I normally take face to face. I did it. This was the second time we did it by Zoom, and it was fine. There wasn't even a lag. I thought there might be a lag with the timing of the music I'm playing, but it worked great.
You know what I found amazing was, because Zoom is, I'll give them a plug, the class I took this morning, because people have been really looking forward to getting back to exercise. There were 77 people on that call.
Wow.
And
that's a lot.
And I got a good sweat. It was great. So can you tell me the story behind your company and what the journey's been like?
Sure. So after the novelty of video cassette, direct mail video brochures, after that wore off and the competition really started to take off, we were constantly looking for new platforms, channels to incorporate to make our media campaigns cost efficient and effective for companies large and small. So we naturally gravitated from direct mail videos to infomercials. We were one of the first to start doing infomercials, and then we pioneered a new approach called documercials. And we rode that wave for a decade in the 90s, doing sponsored news magazine shows, half-hour news magazine shows, following 60 Minutes, Dateline, Nightline news formats, but sponsored, so we could control it, where it aired and when and how often. And then with the advent of digital, we started incorporating that into our services. And then PR. I found publicists that were willing to work on a performance basis. And when they book a Good Morning America for our clients or the Today Show, I pay them on a per performance basis, and they're all outsourced. So we created this package called Media Blitz. If you go to mediablitz.tv, you can read all about it. But it has everything but the kitchen sink for what is working with today's audiences that have the attention span of a hummingbird. So we now have hundreds of success stories, references from companies large and small, companies as big as MasterCard and Viking Cruises and Sony, and even B2B companies like Qualcomm and Teradata swear by it. And then funded startups, because we will do it on a shared risk basis for the entrepreneurs, where we will split the costs of the campaign in exchange for a small commission on the back end for what are infomercials, documercials, 2-minute DRTV spots, direct response television, DRTV, where there's a specific call to action. And increasingly, we're running that not only on traditional cable channels and satellite, but connected TV, OTT, programmable channels. We've never been able to target as effectively as we have now with television through these newer platforms. So Media Blitz has been our saving grace, and companies large and small, and we're still going like gangbusters, even though my wife has wanted me to retire a decade ago, and financially we could have, even with 6 expensive kids going to expensive colleges or private schools and 5 daughters with expensive weddings. We've still been very blessed financially, much of it due to keeping our overhead low and outsourcing. to remote teams and workers all the
Wow,
time.
that's great. So sounds like you a while ago you incorporated the idea of remote at your company, but how specifically did you do that? Because you went from a not a well brick and mortar building to, you said 100% remote, right?
Yes, we
Well, how
had
did you
50
do that?
employees. We had 50 employees on the back lot of Universal Studios Hollywood, and then during the dot-com boom, we had 17 employees up in Silicon Valley
Hmm.
area. But it was heart-wrenching at first to put everybody under contract, but it's better than laying them off. We said, okay, when we've got a gig, uh, you know, you'll be our go-to person. But it actually freed us up. Instead of just pushing every in-house person we have for the campaign, it freed us up to handpick the best teams for that particular client's needs,
Hmm.
budget, target, genre, and often, to hedge my bets, when we're in a pitching stage to prospective clients, I'll show a variety of samples of work from our different teams and at different budget levels, so we can cover all of the bases: high, medium, low end budgets and styles, the documentary style, news magazine style, the warm and fuzzy styles, the high tech with lots of visual effects styles. So it's been very freeing for us to have that kind of versatility in not being obligated to push just the in-house employees to work, but showing a variety of work samples and case studies and
Hmm.
references, and
Cool. So
that
just out of
helps our
curiosity,
closing. Yes.
how many W-2 employees do you actually have?
Oh, dozens. I keep don't tell the EDD this,
Hmm.
but I keep enough vendors busy as if they were full time. I don't think they handle any other work besides the work we give them. I'd say there's 7 people that are so busy that they don't need to look elsewhere,
Hmm.
just from the work we give. And then probably a couple of dozen of freelancers or contract
Wow.
workers
So you
remotely.
really do have a skeleton crew.
Yeah, we do. And yet we do millions of dollars of business a year. I've had 3 recent offers to be acquired by much larger companies, but I enjoy being my own boss. And frankly, I'm afraid of a boring retirement. I'm wired for work and pitching. I
Hmm.
love the chase. I love the presentations, proposals, contract negotiation, everything that an executive producer does, packaging the teams and overseeing them. And even with only working 20 hours a week, we still manage millions of dollars of business every year, and stress, a lot less stress
Yep.
because of these proven, vetted remote workers. That now there are some drawbacks, though. Admittedly, there's this fear that are we being circumvented when I pitch a certain director's work, and if that prospect should approach any of our teams, our
Hmm.
our remote teams directly, are they going to be loyal to us and keep us in the loop and recognize it came from us? I would say 98% of the time they do. They're loyal, but I've caught a couple that circumvented the
Mm.
relationships. So you do lose a bit of control, but overall, it's still been the pros have far outweighed the cons.
Yeah, and actually, that's actually a quality of life issue too, when you think about it.
Yes, yeah,
Right.
very true. Where the company doesn't own me, I'm more
Mm.
in control of, being the father of 6 kids, and doing a lot of volunteer work. You know, I felt stretched very thin, but
Mm.
now I've got it so streamlined that really, with about 20 hours of work a week,
Mm.
still handling some really big accounts and smaller ones. The funded startups are actually more maintenance, higher maintenance, and more work often than
Yeah.
the Jenny Craigs that we handle, and the Mastercards and the
Mm.
Teradata's of the world.
Yeah. Wow. I would imagine. So, in the current situation with the ongoing pandemic, a lot of companies are being forced to go remote.
Yes.
So, what do you think are the major roadblocks and challenges that they're dealing with now and they're going to deal with over the next few months?
Well, the transition can be tricky when you're used to having people at your fingertips in-house and commuting to work and having those face-to-face conference calls. and meetings, if that's what your whole life has been, your career, to transition to working remotely, for some people it is a challenge. I enjoy it because I've always kind of been an intrapreneur. Uh,
Hmm.
I love my years at Ogilvy where I had big teams to work with and face to face. But for those, it can get a little bit lonely at times where working from your home. But uh, I think once you make that transition, you'll never want to go back. The fact you don't have to commute anymore and deal with getting dressed up, worrying about what you're going to wear. You wouldn't believe the amount of work I can get done in my bathrobe in the mornings.
I know it's funny because there's been days when I have literally gotten out of my pajamas and gone right to the gym.
Right.
Because you just don't have those distractions.
Yes, it's
So,
true.
so, and we'll finish with a question. It might not pertain to you as much, but companies like Gaper, we help startups build and scale products. And I don't know how much you do from an IT standpoint,
Mhm.
but how important do you think it is for companies, especially some of the VC, as a VC, for companies to hire quality people? I think is the main thing, and quickly. How important do you think that is?
I think it's very important because the technologies are constantly changing, and if you have in-house people, it's one thing for them just to deal with like if they're designing an app or a website and all. Uh, it's free. Like when I mentioned how freeing it is that I have a whole variety of different directors and writers and editors, I can look at their work and handpick the best team that's suited for our clients, their category, their target, their
Mhm.
budget. And I think that would apply in the world of tech and software engineers, for
Mhm.
instance,
It
because
definitely does.
when you can look at a variety of samples and say, wow, that team designed that's exactly what we were looking for, you
Mhm.
know, um, but if it doesn't work out and the chemistry is not right, you can let them go very quickly without the pains of and
Mhm.
and worries of workers' comp lawsuits and things. We had a freelancer who was coming to our office even after I outsourced everything, and he said, well, I just want to work out of the office. So he would come to our guest house, which had been converted into a workspace and conference rooms, and he would come every day. And when it came time for him, when he finished up the gig we assigned him, he filed a workers' comp lawsuit, I guess, claiming he was an employee, even though I never dictated his hours.
Mhm.
I paid him for the job, for the script that he did, and we had to pay a huge fine because EDD thought he was an employee since he came to our office every day, and that was a
Wow.
learning experience.
Yeah.
$60,000 hit, believe it or
Wow.
not.
Interesting. We won't go into all those different. I am also in California, so I know some of the,
Yeah.
the things in California specifically.
Yes.
Well, Jeffrey, this has been great. I thank you for your time, and I wish you all the best of luck. And I hope you have a good night.
Thank you, Mark. It was fun.
Yes,
Thanks for
thank
the
you.
good questions.